Welcome back to Artificial Neural Networks virtual class. In the last class, you have seen how memories are formed in brain. So today we will discuss what mathematical equations or what mathematical concepts can mimic those memories. And the topic will be attractor neural network associative memory. In the last class, we started discussing that hippocampus is the area of the brain in which declarative memories are formed. And to understand that, we also saw that how CA1 pyramidal neurons is responsible for those kind of memory formation in the synaptic junction between the presynaptic neuron and postsynaptic neuron. And then we also discussed Hebb's rule, where it tells that the presynaptic neuron fires the postsynaptic neuron continuously based on some stimulus, and if it happens over and over, there is some kind of growth or some kind of synaptic changes which will lead to long term potentiation or some kind of learning which happens there. So we also discussed long term potentiation, and then we also saw NMDA synaptic model, where we used where we saw the glutamate receptors responsible for opening of the NMDA channels and non-NMDA channels, and how the sodium influx and potassium outflux will change the potential of the neurons, and then the calcium influx will help in releasing more glutamate receptors, and how this will lead to long term potentiation. So you had a basic idea of how memories are formed in brain. So the bottom line is synapses, new synapses which are grown, or the same synapses will increase its strength by continuously firing from presynaptic neuron to postsynaptic neuron due to some stimulus, can lead to a long-term potentiation or a kind of memory. So now, and we also discussed about the properties of memories, where it is connectivity, and then associativity and specificity of the memories. So please go back to the last class video if you are not familiar with these concepts what we have discussed, and then start watching today's video, because in today's video we will be extending this biological model of memory into a mathematical or neural network form. Now we are going to discuss what memories are meant mathematically. On a superficial level, memories are minima of a Lyapunov function. Did you understand? Memories are the minimum point of a Lyapunov function. Then you should understand what is Lyapunov function, right? So you can see in the figure, the Lyapunov functions uh, are a class of functions which are scalar functions that may be used to prove the stability of an equilibrium of an ordinary differential equation. So this concept comes from a dynamical theory, which is the extension of control theory, what you have studied in your lower semester. We will not go into much details of it, but what you have to understand is, let's say a function which is mapping from n-dimensional space, a real domain n-dimensional space, to another n-dimensional real space, and if you take a first order differential equation, then the solution to that, or the equilibrium point, will be at y is equal to 0, and that is what you can see in this figure. In this spherical cone shape figure, you can see the minima occurs at the origin, right? So this kind of function is called Lyapunov function. So if you remember this much, that is more than sufficient. And these minimas are considered as memories in the neural network. Okay. Now, then what is attractor networks? Attractor networks are also a kind of neural networks, though, but only difference now which comes is it can also be connected recurrently, whose dynamics settles to a stable pattern. Till now, we were discussing only feed forward neural networks where there was no connection, no feedback connections to the previous node or in the nodes in the same layer. So, from this module onwards, we will be seeing neural networks where there will be self connections to the nodes, or there could be a feedback connection to the nodes in the same layer or in the previous layers. Okay. An attractor network is a set of n network nodes connected in such a way that their global dynamics becomes stable in an in a d-dimensional space. Okay, so on a simple terms, you have to remember that attractor network is also a kind of neural network with having n network nodes. But now here the important parameter is the self state of that nodes is very important. Okay, so an attractor network, we usually have network state space and attractor space. A network state space is determined by the set of all possible node states. So till now we were not discussing what was the state of each node, right? We were interested only in the weights associated from one node to another node. But now we will be interested in understanding what is the state of that particular node. What are the possible set of states it can have by each nodes. Then what is attractor space? It is a subspace of the network state space that only includes points on an attractor. So the attractor here is these minima points. Okay. So having to discussed about these mathematical concepts, now let's see what is there in your syllabus. So your syllabus tells that memories are minima of Lyapunov function. In neural network dynamics, the state of network maps to a point on the Lyapunov energy spaces or energy surfaces. An attractor neural network falls to an energy state that represent the closest local minimum under the influence of the vector field. That is what you can see. A neural network will drive the network or the neural network state to that minima point through the vector. Now the vector could be the gradient which we are discussing. This vector is characterized by the structure of connections. Now this vector is characterized by the structure of connections, the weights, and the signal function. This is what we are discussing. What kind of connections we have in the neural network, what kind of weights are there, what kind of signal activation functions we are using. These will be characterizing those vector which will drive that to a minimum point. The network states evolve in time until a local minimum is reached, after which states stop evolving further. So the basic idea is we have to reach that minima point of a Lyapunov function, and that represents the memory. To perform useful computation in an attractor neural network, the local minimum at which the network state stabilizes is interpreted as a memory of the system. So what is the most important point what we are discussing in this slide is this. So what is considered as memory in a neural network? It is the local minima at which the network state stabilizes is to be interpreted as a memory of the system. So you have to keep in mind that the real memories which are formed in the neurons is quite different from what we are trying to mimic the same kind of memory in a neural network, right? So we are trying to write, we are trying to tell mathematically what memory can be. So you need to understand that concept. An input vector sets the initial state of network, which is represented by a point on the energy surface. So you can see it will start somewhere at some point on the energy surface. Let's consider these all are energy surfaces. The network state evolves in time till the system hits the local energy minimum. So it starts some, it's, if you see the figure, it will start somewhere in the energy surface, a point on the energy surface, and the network keeps on evolving in time until it hits the local minimum. The minimum energy points of the Lipnov surface have therefore to be mapped to the desired memory states, and these local minima are considered as the desired memory states. So you can imagine this to be a kind of concepts which you have learned in information theory coding, or uh, digital logic where you have studied flip-flops where it can store a bit, and in information theory and coding where you have used Markov models and you have written a state diagrams, right? So now suppose if you think you have to write a mathematically what could be a memory, you can tell that it is a minima point of a Lipnov function from the dynamical theory of mathematics. Okay, so the bottom line, what you have to understand from all this discussion, of all these 7 minutes of discussion, is memories are minima of a Lipnov function. If you understand that, that is more than sufficient. After understanding what is memory from a mathematical point of view, now we know that we humans always have associative memory. That is, one thought or one stimuli will relate the other memories which are already stored and makes an association with the new thought or a new stimuli. Right? This kind of memories we always have. Now, how do we mimic those kind of associative memory? What could be the model, neural network model, which can mimic those kind of associative memory? That is what we are going to discuss now. The associative memory model maps points from an input space into a fixed set of points in an output space. So if you see the figure, there is an input space X and there is an output space Y. So the associative memory just maps from the input space to output space. In a simple term, this is what the model is. Associative memories map data from an input space to data in an output space, that is, from unknown domain points to known range points. See, the output space is a known range points, and unknown domain points is the new things what you have in input space. The memory learns an underlying association from a training data set. So the memory learns an underlying association from a training data set. See, when you see something, for time being, it is an unknown quantity for you. But once it relates with those memories which are already formed, then the association happens, and you know where it should be mapped, right? You can think from this point of view. See, when you see something which is new, your brain automatically tries to compare it with already known things which is stored in your memory. So it is trying to map an unknown quantity with a known quantity, and that is what is being written in a mathematical form here. So now, how does this happen? In a simplistic terms, this can be done as shown in this another figure. Here, here we are talking about the matrices or the weights which already have the connection patterns. That means the weight already know how to map the input space to output space. The memory models considered in the present study have their origin in additive neuronal dynamics and are non-learning in nature. So for right now, we are trying to tell that these are already programmed. That means we already know the weights which know how to map from input space to output space. It means that the connection strengths are programmed a prior based on associations that are to be encoded in the system. No learning takes place during the operation of the system. So the assumption is we already know the mapping and it is already encoded in the weight matrix W. Sometimes such memories are referred to as matrix associative memories. because a connection matrix W encodes a program association. Here, if you see the figure, the AI vector belongs to some n-dimensional space and Bi belongs to some m-dimensional space, as shown in the figure, which you can see that AI. So then the combination of AI comma Bi is one of the programmed memories. Okay, what is the programmed memory here? The layer or the matrix what you see, the combination of AI comma Bi is one of the programmed memories. Then the B suffix I is called the associant of AI. That means if you give AI as the input, then using those programmed memories, you will get Bi which is associated with the AI. That is what is being shown in this figure. Then presentation of some input vectors A dash produces an output response vector B dash. If A dash is close to some encoded association AI, then B dash that is generated should be close to Bi. We know that every time the same inputs may not come to our brain or even in this model. So if A dash is a vector which is very close to AI, then it will produce B dash which is also very close to Bi. So, see, if we give AI as the input to this matrix associative memory, then we get Bi. Suppose if A dash is very close to AI, then we should get B dash which is also very close to Bi, right? So then only we can understand the things which are very close to what we have already seen. So that is what is being told in this model. And we will solve some problem to understand this, where you will understand whatever we are discussing now in a proper manner when you see the problem how it is solved. Till now we discussed what is memory, and then we discussed what is associative memory model from the mathematical point of view, and now actually we are going to see how neural network can model the associative memories. So the figure what you are seeing is a simple associative memory generated by two-layer neural network. So you can see two layers, one input layer having different nodes and one output layer, and the connection between input layer to output layer is given by the weight matrix. So the input layer receives the input, and one which generates the output is the output vectors. The two layers are assumed to be connected through n cross m connection matrix, which is W. And this W is your mapping function or the weights which will map from your input to output. And this is simple feed forward neural network which we are studying from many months now. If all the neurons are assumed to be linear in the input and output layer, then for any input vector A that is presented to the network, the activation and thus the signal vector B of the output neurons can be written compactly in the matrix form B is equal to A transpose into W. This is what we are doing, which you know from the linear neurons. Here, the association of B with A is generated through the connection matrix W. This is an example of linear memory. So just now we saw that what is an associative memory model, which maps an input vector from an input space to an output vector in the output space. And that is being done in a simple two-layer feed-forward neural network, where we give an input vector, and using the connection matrix W, we map that to the output vector. And those W are your associative memory matrices. So this is very simple linear memory. Additional complexity can be introduced into the operation of the same network, two-layer neural network, by employing non-linear activation functions at the input as well as at the output. So if I say till now we were using linear activation function, and you know there are different non-linear activation functions like like the sigmoidal, then tan hyperbolic, then probabilistic activation functions. By using those kind of nonlinear activation functions, we can increase the complexity. Then we can write B is equal to the activation function of A transpose into W, where we assume that the signal vector A is generated using nonlinear function of activations in the input layer. In this case, the memory is a nonlinear memory, right? So you are learning same neural network model, but only difference now we are looking the neural network from the memory point of view instead of training. So we are giving an input vector and we are going to get an output vector which is very close to the previous memories, and that association is encoded in the matrix connection matrix W. And then we discussed here what is linear memory and what is non-linear memory, and it all depends on the activation function which we are going to use. In the last associative model, memory model, we saw a two-layer network which was having only unidirectional connection. So now we are going to see where there could be a feedback connection from output layer to input layer. A further level of complexity in the operation of the same two-layer network can be introduced by incorporating a feedback as shown in figure A. So see the figure A where there is a connection, feedback connection from output layer to input layer. A reverse set of connections allows signals from output layer of neurons to flow back to the input layer, thereby modifying their activation levels. This introduces dynamics into the network operation. So even if you remember, the feedback is very important, not only in neural networks, even in other subjects where you have studied the role of feedback in linear integrated circuits, in control systems, in other aspects, even in the formation of memory. For example, in flip-flops, you have seen the role of feedback. So feedbacks are very important, and it introduces the dynamics of proper formation of complex memories. And these kind of memories which you see in figure A are also called as heteroassociative memories. Now what about figure B? In figure B, a single layer of neurons feeds back to itself through a single set of connections, generating auto-associative architecture. So in figure B, you can see there is only one layer of network where both input vector is given to that one layer and the output of that layer gives you the output vector. Now that output vector is fed back as the feedback and given to the input side. So this kind of connection is called as auto-associative architecture. Whether the system is auto-associative or hetero-associative, the memory of the vectors that are to be associated is stored in the connection of the network. So the connection matrix W is the one which stores those vectors which are to be associated with the memory formation or the map associative memories. Associative memory models enjoy properties such as fault tolerance, and when they are auto-associative, they are capable of solving pattern completion problems. So the advantage of auto-associatives are they can be used for pattern completion problems. So when we go further, when we study Hopfield networks and recurrent neural networks, see this becomes the foundation for all those networks. And to tell you the application, today we see a lot of speech processing and voice recognition system. Most of them are built on recurrent neural networks where the role of this feedback and memories are playing very important role. So from last few minutes we are telling that the association happens in the connection matrix W, right? So now we are going to discuss Hebb association matrix, how that matrix is generated. Since the association is embedded within the connection matrix, the question to ask is, how do we compute the connection matrix? I think you must have got this question by now, and you are wondering how do we calculate that connection matrix which can map the input to the output. Now recall that the Hebb postulate that we studied in the last class states that the change in synaptic efficacy is proportional to the conjunction of or the product of pre and post synaptic neuronal signals, right? So we construct the matrix W in accordance with this principle. So the connection matrix W is based on the Hebb's postulate which we studied. That is, the role of pre and post synaptic neuronal signals will be there, and the continuous firing of presynaptic neuron will lead to the postsynaptic neuronal strengths. To formalize this idea, let's consider the two layers which we just saw. Two layer of input, one layer input layer and another output layer, and which was making a associative memory. We consider that kind of structure, neural network structure. Two layers Lx and Ly of n and m neurons respectively. That means in input Lx layer we have n neurons, in output Ly layer we have m neurons respectively, such that neurons from Lx connect to Ly using the weight matrix W. This is what we were discussing. If we assume that the weight matrix is constructed using Hebbian learning, which is from the Hebb's postulate, it generates weight values in accordance with the product of presynaptic and postsynaptic activities of neuron as follows. So how it is generated? The weight matrix based on the Hebbian learning. It is the product of the presynaptic and postsynaptic activities of neuron as follows in this equation. Del of Wij is equal to learning rate into Ai into Bj. Here, the change in delta represents the small change in the weight matrix. Wij are the weight values, and ai is the vector which you saw in a suffix I, and b is the output which we want to get. So those are the product. So we are multiplying the product of presynaptic. So a represent presynaptic and b represent postsynaptic activities, and this product is also multiplied by the learning rate. So here the learning rate is very important when we are talking in the neural network perspective. For some learning rate, signal vectors A is given by A1, A2 up to AN with a transpose, that is to make the vector, and B is equal to B1, B2 up to Bm to the transpose across Lx and Ly respectively. So A consists of these vector in Lx layer and B is the vector in the Ly layer. This rule is often referred to as generalized Hebbian rule. So if you are asked to write what is generalized Hebbian rule, you are going to tell this it is based on Hebb's postulate, and the weight values are calculated by the product of presynaptic and postsynaptic activities as given by the equation. Now let us assume that the learning rate is equal to 1. Now the Hebbian learning essentially reduces to taking the outer product of signal vectors. Now you have to understand, till now in backpropagation or even in the feed forward neural network, till now we have studied inner product. So usually a basic neuronal model always compute the inner product. So the product of two vectors were giving you a single value, but now it is not inner product, it is outer product. So the product of two vectors will give you a matrix instead of a single value, and that is what will be seen in this equation later. For example, if we start out with the zero association matrix, then a single association between two vectors A and B is then encoded as W. The weight, the connection matrix W will be equal to the outer product of A matrix into B transpose matrix. So if you do this kind of outer product, you generate the matrix with each values being the product of A1 B1, A2 B2, like that up to AN comma BN. So it makes a matrix, and this matrix is your connection matrix W. The Hebb conjunctional learning rule should be clear from the matrix. So this is how the connection matrix is generated. I think now you got the answer. So it is generated based on the product of presynaptic and postsynaptic neurons which are given by the vector A and B. The weight wij that connects a neuron I of Lx to neuron J of Ly is the product of the respective signals Ai and Bj of both the neurons, and the association of A, B is thus encoded into the matrix. This form of conjunctional learning underlines all the attractor neural networks which we are going to study in this module. So this is the most important topic. If you understand this, only then you will understand all the models which we are going to learn, which comes under attractor neural networks. So basically, how this connection matrix W is generated, it is the connection from I neuron of layer Lx to J neuron of Ly by doing the product of their respective signals, that is presynaptic and postsynaptic activities. I hope this is clear. Now that we have understood how to calculate the connection matrix W, let us consider a simple case of linear associative memory. So to keep the discussion simple, we will work with linear neurons. That means in both the layers Lx and Ly, the neurons are linear neurons whose activation function is linear. Assume that a single association A, B has been encoded into the connection matrix W. That means that we have only single vector A and single vector B, and there is an association of A to B by the connection matrix W. Then from the last equation which we know, then the outer product W will be equal to A into B transpose. If we present the vector A to Lx, then the activity that develops across Ly is given by B dash of transpose is equal to A transpose into W. See, now we are giving A to Lx, and W is the one which connects from A to B, that is Lx to Ly. So A transpose will be multiplied with the W. But what is W now? W will be equal to A into B transpose. So substituting A into B transpose into W in the equation, we get A transpose into A into B transpose. Now you know that A transpose into A will give you the norm square or the magnitude square. So this will lead to magnitude of A square or norm square into B transpose. So if you give A transpose as the input vector, we are supposed to get B transpose but with the product of magnitude of or the norm square of that. That is why it is called B dash transpose. The output vector that is recalled across Ly is a scaled version of B, right? So we were expecting B. B means the B transpose. So B transpose is taken to make it as a column vector or to make the row vector. So the transpose is just to change from column to row vectors. So we were expecting B, but we got the scaled version because of the magnitude square of A multiplying with that. If the vector A is normalized, then the recall is exact. That means if we make the magnitude of A as 1, then if we give A vector, we will get the B vector. So the associate B is called the associant of vector A. So we wanted to get the B when we send A in the input layer Lx. And that can happen, then the recall can be exact only when we normalize the vector A. Now this was only for the single vector A and single associant vector B. What if we have more vectors? What if more than one association needs to be encoded? Then superimpose the individual association matrices. Assume that Q associations are there where A k, B k and k is varying from 1 to q that are to be encoded. Then the resulting connection matrix is just given by W is equal to summation k is equal to 1 to q AK into BK transpose. This is nothing but the product of outer product of individual vectors AK and BK transpose. In this figure you have seen in the last to last slide where you saw many matrices in parallel, where each one of them was written as A1 B1, A2 B2, A3 B3 like that. Now a special case arises if the vectors AK are orthonormal. See, the orthonormality you already know from digital communication second module, where you have calculated the basis vectors and all, the Gram-Smith generation of mapping vectors. And in simple terms, orthonormal is nothing but orthogonal. The vectors has to be orthogonal as well as whose magnitude should be unity, which is shown in this equation. And you already know about orthonormal. Now, if a special case arises when the vectors which we are choosing A, which has fed as input, is orthonormal. In such case, when an association AI, which is orthonormal, is presented to neurons in the layer LX, a forward pass through the network yields a vector B dash, which is exact. And you can see that from this equation. So AI transpose is multiplied by the W, and W is given by this summation K is equal to 1 to Q AK into BK transpose. So substituting that here and multiplying with AI transpose, and then by doing further simplification, we can show that it is equal to magnitude of AI square into BI transpose plus 0, because product of AI transpose AK, where A and K are different, will always lead to 0 due to orthonormality principle. So now, and because the magnitude is 1, magnitude of AI square will also be 1. So we have got just BI transpose. So by sending AI, we are getting exact BI. So in the last case, we told that we need to normalize. So if we normalize that from the principle of orthonormal, we get the exact associant of AI. Now the recall of the encoded associant BI is perfect. Such associative memories are called orthogonal linear associative memories, in short OLAMS. So when we use orthonormal input vectors, we get perfect associant BI, and it is called orthogonal linear associative memories. To understand the beauty of this concept, when we solve a problem in the next slide, you will understand what exactly we are talking, how orthonormal will help you to get the exact associative memory which is associated with AI. After understanding a special case where if we use orthonormal input vectors, we get orthogonal linear associative memories, we will solve a problem to understand the concepts properly by solving a problem. Consider the following three associations into an OLAM, where there are three vectors a1, a2, a3 as given, and these a1, a2, a3 are orthonormal. You can see that. And if you have understood the digital communication second module, you have seen these kind of problems where the vector 1 followed by 3 zeros and 0 1 followed by 2 zeros and 2 0 followed by 1 0 are orthogonal. You know that. So I'm not going into the details of that. So these are the three inputs we have, and we need to have the association of these association vectors for these three vectors as b1, b2, b3, and those are given by b1 is equal to 1 2 3 transpose, b2 is minus 2 3 1 transpose, b3 is 4 0 4 t transpose. That means what we need to tell is, if I give a1, I need to get b1, because now the association is exact, because a1 is orthonormal. Similarly, if I give a2, I should get b2, and if I give a3, I should get b3 in a neural network. So this is to tell that when we receive some input, we are going to associate that input with some memory which are already formed. So the memories which are already formed is indicated by B1, B2, B3, and your inputs are your A1, A2, A3. Or you can assume that A1, A's are presynaptic and B's are postsynaptic. Where A1, A2, A3, B1, B2, B3 are column vector associations. Encoding generates the following connection matrix. Just now we have seen how to calculate the connection matrix W. So W was equal to summation K1 to Q AK into BK transpose, the outer product summation of the individual outer products. So let's do that. So W is equal to A1 B1 transpose plus A2 B2 transpose plus A3 B3 transpose. So now if we do that, see, A1 into B1 transpose outer product will lead to this matrix. right? So A1 is A followed by 3 0 transpose, B1 is 1 2 3 whole to the power of transpose, but we need to transpose, take again transpose of that. So now we have a product of four rows and one column in A1 matrix, and B1 is uh, it is just one row with three columns. So when we multiply four rows with one column and one row with three columns, we get four rows with three columns as the answer. That is why we got 1 2 3 followed by all the zeros in the rows. Similarly, if we do A2 B2 transpose, A3 B3 transpose, then if we add all of them, we get the W, and that W we got it as 1 2 3 minus 2 3 1 4 0 4 with the last row as all zeros. So this is your now connection matrix W. So this maps your input A with the output B vector. So let's see how it is going to map. So now let's give A1 as the input to the layer LX, and we have to expect B1 as the output. So now if we see A1 transpose multiplied with W, what do we get? So A1 transpose is 1 followed by 3 zeros multiplied with the W what we have calculated, and we do the matrix multiplication, we get 1 2 3, which is same as B1. So we got the B1. So the W connection matrix is able to associate the A with the B, right? So you can imagine this. So let's say B is already a formed memory and you are receiving an input A, and if you have a proper connection matrix, you can always associate that input with the memory which has already formed in B, and we are able to do that. So similarly, you can solve for A2 and A3, and I will leave that as assignment for you to solve. Now we'll see the another case. Also, additional of input vectors yields the addition of corresponding associants. Now think about if A1 and A2 both the stimulus comes as added input, then what do you expect as the output? So if we give A1 plus A2 as the input, A1 plus A2 whole transpose, and if we give that as the input, then that is multiplied with the W. And you can see that A1 plus A2 will give me 1, comma 1, comma 0, 0. And this multiplied with the W, connection matrix W, I get minus 1, 5 and 4 as the B transpose output, and this is nothing but the addition of B1 plus B2. You can see that 1 plus minus 2 is minus 1, 2 plus 2, 2 plus 3 is 5, 3 plus 1 is 4. So if I give the input as A1 plus A2, I get the output as B1 plus B2. Don't you think this is amazing? Now let's say we always don't get the exact inputs, right? We, for example, if you see a friend who has changed his appearance, till now you are seeing your friend as one kind of input, now the appearance has slightly changed, or you have seen your friend after many years, so there will be some changes, but it will be very close. Now let's say if we give an input to a layer which is very close to the value which we have orthonormal. So lastly, consider a vector A which is zero point 0.9, zero point 0.1, zero point 0.1 and zero point 0.1 as the input. So earlier we had A1 as 1 followed by 3 zeros. So now zero point 0.9 is very close to 1, zero point 0.1 is very close to 0, zero point 0.1 is again very close to 0, and zero point 0.1 is again very close to 0. Now if we give this as the input which is close to A1 as the input to the layer LX, now with the same W connection matrix, can we get the output? Ideally, we should get the output as B1. So can we get output which is very close to B1? So let's see that. So if you multiply A transpose with W, point 0.9, zero point 0.1, zero point 0.1, zero point 0.1 multiplied with the W matrix which we have calculated, we get the output as 1.1, 2.1 and 3.2, and you can see that it is very close to B1. B1 was 1 2 3. Now it is 1.1 which is close to 1, 2.1 which is close to 2, 3.2 which is close to 3. So you have got which is very close to B1. So now that is why you can recognize, even there is a slight change in your input, you can associate that input with the memory which was already formed. So don't you think this problem is very realistic to what kind of associative memories we form in our brains? I feel this is very proper association of what we do in real, and being explained mathematically using the orthonormal principle. I would recommend you to go through the lecture notes and study this properly, and go through each and every point, and try to understand, because these are very important concepts and very fascinating concepts. And if you have any doubts, please feel free to ask. Thank you for watching.